When most people think of a narcissist, they picture someone loud, arrogant, domineering, someone who walks into a room and immediately makes everything about themselves. But there is another type, quieter, more subtle, far harder to identify. They don't brag openly, they fish for compliments, they don't demand attention, they manufacture situations where attention flows to them naturally. They don't seem arrogant, they seem sensitive, wounded, in need of your care. And by the time you realize what has been happening, you have spent months or years pouring yourself into someone who was quietly draining everything you had. This is covert narcissism, and it may be the most dangerous form of all. Welcome to MindFrame Lab, where we decode human behavior. Narcissistic personality disorder exists on a spectrum. At one end is the overt narcissist, grandiose, loud, easy to spot once you know what you're looking for. At the other end is the covert narcissist, also known as the vulnerable or introverted narcissist, who presents in an almost opposite way. The core traits are identical: lack of empathy, entitlement, exploitation of others, and a fragile ego that cannot tolerate criticism. But the presentation is so different that most people never see it coming. The covert narcissist's primary tool is victimhood, where the overt narcissist demands admiration directly. The covert narcissist creates situations where you feel compelled to give it. They are always the one who has been wronged, always the one who has suffered more, always the one whose feelings are more fragile, more important, more in need of your attention. This is not accidental. It is a strategy, again, often unconscious, for maintaining the narcissistic supply they need without appearing to demand it. They are the friend who always has a crisis, the partner whose pain always ends up being about them, even when you came to them with your own, the colleague who responds to your good news with a subtle reminder of how much they have struggled. The second key behavior is passive aggression. Covert narcissists rarely attack directly. Instead, they use silence, withdrawal, subtle digs, backhanded compliments, and a strategic withholding of affection to communicate displeasure and maintain control. They will never say, "I am angry with you." They will simply become cold, distant, and then deny that anything is wrong when you ask, leaving you anxious, confused, and working to fix a problem they will never acknowledge. The third behavior is covert envy. While the overt narcissist may openly compete or demean, the covert narcissist tends to respond to others' success with a quiet but corrosive resentment. They may subtly undermine your achievements, change the subject when you share good news, or offer praise that somehow leaves you feeling worse than before. The reason covert narcissism is so difficult to identify comes down to one core dynamic. They look like the victim, not the perpetrator. In any conflict, the covert narcissist will almost always appear to be the one who has been hurt. They are more sensitive, more wounded, more in need of comfort. And so the people around them, including their partners, find themselves constantly managing the covert narcissist's feelings while their own needs go unmet. This creates a dynamic that is very hard to name from the inside. Because how do you say, "I feel manipulated" by someone who seems so fragile? How do you set a boundary with someone who immediately becomes the victim of that boundary? The covert narcissist also tends to be highly skilled at what researchers call impression management. In public, with friends, at work, they are often seen as kind, humble, even self-deprecating. The abuse, such as it is, tends to happen behind closed doors, in private conversations, in the subtle dynamics of the relationship that are almost impossible to explain to an outsider. This is why so many people in relationships with covert narcissists feel gaslit, not just by their partner, but by the world around them. Everyone else seems to see a completely different person. So how do you protect yourself from someone whose primary defense is appearing to need protection? The first thing is to pay attention to patterns, not individual moments. Any single behavior from a covert narcissist can be explained away. The crisis that derailed your conversation might have been genuine. The cold withdrawal might have been a stress. The undermining comment might have been clumsiness. It is the pattern, consistent, repeated, always serving the same function, that reveals the truth. Ask yourself, after our interactions, do I consistently feel drained? Do my needs consistently end up taking a back seat? Do I find myself constantly managing their emotions while my own go unaddressed? The second thing is to notice how they respond to your boundaries. Healthy people, when told that something hurts you, adjust. They may not always get it right immediately, but they try. A covert narcissist, when confronted with a boundary, typically responds in one of two ways. They become the victim of your boundary, or they comply temporarily and then gradually erode it. The third thing is to stop trying to fix their pain. This is the hardest one, because covert narcissists are often genuinely in pain, but that pain is not your responsibility to resolve, and the attempt to resolve it, however compassionate, keeps you locked in a dynamic where their emotional state controls your behavior. Compassion for someone does not require you to sacrifice your own well-being indefinitely. Covert narcissism is difficult to see because it hides behind the very things we are taught to honor: sensitivity, vulnerability, the appearance of need. But care without reciprocity is not a relationship. It is a transaction, one where you're always giving and they're always taking, in ways subtle enough that you spend years wondering if you're the problem. You're not the problem, but you do deserve to understand what is actually happening, so you can make clear-eyed decisions about what you are willing to accept. Subscribe to MindFrame Lab for more decoded human behavior every week. See you in the next one.